I'm assuming you want to learn Thresh. You've seen Mad Life in his prime, maybe a sick montage or two, and you tried it yourself, and that didn't go so well maybe? Thresh is a very tricky character. He has an insanely high skill ceiling, but also a decently high skill floor, which means he's not as easy to pick up like the other skillful supports. So today, I'll do a rundown of his abilities, combos, builds, how to use his kit effectively, and generally what to do as a beginner when you load onto the Rift as Thresh. First off, we have Thresh's passive. Thresh doesn't get armor scaling with his level, but he collects souls that give him armor and AP instead. These drop from minions, champions, and monsters. You don't have to pick up every single soul, because that will often get you in bad spots and poked down, but a good benchmark to look for is getting around 50 souls at 20 minutes. Thresh's Q, Death Sentence, throws a hook in a straight line after a pretty distinct windup. Hitting someone stuns them for 1.5 seconds and drags them towards you in 2 pulls. You can recast this ability to dash to the enemy you hit, and if you do hit, the cooldown is also reduced by 2 seconds. You can use any other ability after you've completed the windup, which is very essential for his combos, which I'll get back to later. This ability is probably what got you into Thresh, seeing insane flash predicts and outplays, where your creativity is the only limit on how to use it. But in the beginning, I want you to throw all of this out the window. Yes, all of the sick montages and plays you watched, forget it right now, okay? In the beginning, I want you to look at the Thresh hook like a torch. When you have this ability up, the torch is lit. The enemies respect you because they know that this torch is dangerous and can kill them if it hits. Let's say you decide to throw your torch. One of 2 things will happen. You either hit an enemy, which means they start burning, or get damaged and CC'd, and you'll have a huge advantage in the fight. Or you miss it, and this may happen a lot when you're new to Thresh. Now you've thrown away your torch. You have no light again until the cooldown is over, and if you put yourself in the middle of a bad spot and throw your torch, you'll be left in the dark and get a bad trade, maybe even a horrible one. What I mean by this is you should be mindful of when you use your hook. I'm not saying you should overthink it and hold your hook for the perfect moment, but have a little thought behind when you throw it, and what would happen if you miss. Let me give you an example. The second wave and bot arrived, and you're about to hit level 2. The enemies are behind in XP, so in this situation I'm free to throw my hook, regardless if I hit or miss, because they won't have much to punish me afterwards. So in this situation, it's okay to go for a hook, even if you miss. Safe to throw the hook like that, because they don't have level 2, right? In this clip though, there's no special advantage, which means missing the hook leads to you getting poked down and bullied, because the enemies don't need to respect you anymore. So here it's not great to throw your Q, because you'll gamble on it hitting, and a miss will be dangerous for you and your ADC. So now you have the general idea of the power the hook has. It's a huge threat for the enemies, and you gotta remember that you are the main character when this ability is up, so don't throw it away like a dumbass. One great way to use it is after someone else has stunned an enemy, which makes a very nice chain CC. But how do you hit this ability on your own? This is a big question, almost a philosophical one. Before I tell you, I gotta say that you'll rarely be throwing this ability on its own, because usually you want to start with a Flay to make it easier to hit, which I'll talk more about. But for aiming the hook itself, I have some tips. As I mentioned, the hook has a very distinct windup, so you won't be hooking where the enemy is when you click it, but rather which direction you think they will go. It depends a lot on the player where you should aim, and also which rank you're in, but I'll give you a very general rule of thumb. The lower ranked players usually run away to escape from you and the hook. Around Plat, Emerald, and Diamond, people will very often sidestep to dodge your hook. And in high ranks, there will be a back and forth of mind games, the enemies trying to predict your prediction, and so on. So essentially, it's not about you aiming well, but more so reading the enemies and understanding what they do. I'm not going to scare you too much with this, because reading your enemies is something you get better at over time, so I don't need to dive into a full analysis of it right now. But I do have a trick for you. Thresh will wind up in the direction you are walking or facing. This gives the enemy the idea that you're aiming your hook there as well. What you can do with this is aim your body in one direction and hook in another, giving them the illusion that you'll hook one place and catching them off guard. This is a trick you should be using a lot. The enemies subconsciously dodge according to this many times, so if you struggle hitting a single hook, the chances are you're revealing your cards before you've even played them. You get me? Let's go over to Thresh's W, Dark Passage. You throw your lantern in a certain radius, shielding yourself with the zone it has and the first ally hit. Your ally can then click on the lantern to dash to you instantly. This is arguably one of the best abilities in the game. It's extremely versatile in the way that you can use it to save someone, engage, throw it for the shield in a fight, or just pick up souls. Take the one soul that's left and get the fuck out of here. In lane, I often refer to this ability as a safety net because when this ability is up, your ally essentially has two positions, where one key press gets them to you. That is, if they click it of course. So to use this effectively, you often want to stand with a bit of distance to your ADC so you can easily bail them out if they get engaged on. If they don't have a huge engage, it's still a nice shield for yourself and your ally, so don't forget to use it even if you're not saving someone last second, like your James Bond or something, I don't know. Thresh's E, called Flay, sweeps the ground and knocks up enemies hit, dealing some damage and slowing them for a short moment as well. The E also comes with a passive, which is an empowered auto that builds up over time. It's nice to use this auto at the end of a combo to deal damage, and you'll find that you actually deal quite a lot on Thresh. So if you're not pushing the wave or trying to reach level 2 before your enemies, you usually shouldn't spam hit minions with these autos before you engage, because you'll miss out on some damage. The Flay active ability itself is basically the bread and butter for Thresh when it comes to combos. If you hit your hook, you can Flay afterwards. If you Flay first, you can hit a hook easier. If you ult, you can Flay them into it. You get the idea. A very important takeaway is that the ability starts from the back, so aiming in the opposite direction of the enemies will be a much easier hit than aiming towards them. And it also makes a hook easier to land since they'll be closer, slowed, and have little time to dodge. This ability is very strong as you can stop any dash if timed correctly, so pay attention to what the enemies have and use it as a powerful tool to deny them. Next up we have Thresh's ult, the box. He places down what I refer to as a pentagon cult looking ass box at his location. The 5 walls deal damage and slow enemies that walk through, with reduced slow duration and no damage after the first one. You'll quickly notice that this ult is not really where the power lies, unlike a lot of supports and champs in general. This ability is really just something that complements the rest of the kit Thresh has, and can extend combos, make escaping easier, or be annoying in teamfights. Before I get into the builds, I'll talk about a few essential combos. These are some you have to know, but the possibilities of combos and the freedom you have is endless on this character, where your creativity is really the only thing holding you back. The EQ combo is used every game. You Flay them towards you and instantly press your Q. The knock up and slow from the Flay will help you hit your hook, and this usually creates pressure on the enemy to dash or flash, so keep that in mind for your predictions. You can also use your flash with this combo, as a flash E is insanely hard for them to expect or react to. So if you know a flash is down, you can easily do a flash EQ to hit a very free hook that's basically impossible to dodge. After hitting your Q, you can walk towards them and Flay after, which is the default Thresh combo. Remember to save the Flay for their dash if they have one, as this can make the lives of your enemies very difficult. With ult up after you hit your hook, you can walk slightly towards them and press ult, let Thresh pull twice and then Flay them into the ult. Finish it off with the empowered E auto attack and you'll deal a ton of damage. If you have a teammate nearby, you can use Q, W, and then recast your Q. The lantern won't disappear before you've actually fully reached the target, which is why these type of hook lantern plays are possible. As I mentioned, you can use anything while you have a hook target, so you can also flash for distance, lantern your ally, and then recast your Q. A very important thing that a lot of Thresh players and mains forget is that you want to wait out the entire stun duration before you Flay. The enemy hooked is stunned for 1.5 seconds, which is a very long time, so don't waste your Flay in the middle of it, and use the time while they're stunned to do something else like throwing a lantern to an ally, placing down your ult, or just walking in Flay range. I'm not going to spend too much time on the build, because a lot of Thresh's power comes from his kit, and items are usually mainly for a utility, and depends on the champs you're against. But I'll show you the build I go for usually. You want to pick up tier 2 boots as quickly as possible, as this gives big potential to roam and makes you a menace on the map very early. CDR boots is a safe all-round option that will benefit you a lot in teamfights, since you'll be able to get multiple hooks off of these. What I recommend though is going Swifties. These give a big base movement speed that won't be interrupted by anything, and some slow resist that's nice for a lot of poke matchups too. With these boots, you'll be able to travel the map much quicker, getting to place and positions you want to be. But take this with a grain of salt, as every Thresh player has their own preferences, depending on how they like to play the game. Some people prefer tankier boots, like Tab Ice or Mercs, and plays more frontline, which is also good. After tier 2 boots, I usually buy either Locket or Trailblazer. Locket is a great all-round fighting item that gives a big advantage in fights. It provides every ally, including yourself, a shield starting at 200. This may not sound like much, but I've found that this can often be the difference maker in fights. If you shield your whole team late game with this item, it can shield as much as 1800. Trailblazer is a great item to accelerate your speed even further, making it possible to just run up to enemies before using an EQ combo. I would say it's best if you're snowballing a little bit already, but it's definitely possible to go this item anyways if you think your game has some pick potential. After picking up one of these, you should usually look at what your team could benefit from you providing. Do you need to peel for a strong ADC? Knight's Vow could be good. Do you need to cleanse a strong CC ability? Mikael's can work then. Is the enemy team heavy AP and you get poked down? Maybe an MR item like Canik Rookern or Force of Nature can be good. I mainly build utility items, but I've seen many people have success building more tank-oriented items on Thresh and becoming more of a frontliner. But to summarize, after tier 2 boots and Locket or Trailblazer, you just have to get a little overview of what you need in your game and what you should provide for your team to win. Let's go over to the runes, where I have a little thumb rule for what rune I use for every game. Glacial Augment is good for poke matchups where you won't be taking heavy damage in a burst, where Biscuits and Second Wind can help you survive the lane. Aftershock works well for engage matchups where you need some resistances to tank some trades. You can also run this rune if you feel like your team needs you to frontline a little bit extra. Guardian is a nice all-around rune, although I rarely use it myself, I know it can be a nice, safe option into most matchups. A cool feature with this rune is that your lantern can proc the Guardian, which can make a pretty huge shield in total. Personally, I almost always run Cosmic Insight and Hexflash regardless if I go Aftershock or Glacial. These two allow you to use your flash more often, which is important for the EQ combo, and a Hexflash while on cooldown. You can use this to burn flashes and have something while the enemies don't, while also getting your flash before they get it back. You can be kind of creative with Hexflash too, using it to travel over walls, between bushes, and giving Thresh the little mobility he wished he had. That's how I play at least. Thresh is lore-wise and gameplay-wise a demon that drags enemies to their death by crowd control. In game, you're the puppeteer that controls the game in your favor, holding enemies stunned so much they want to break their keyboard, and making your enemies love you by saving them over and over again. We're just out! Thresh is a very skill-expressive character, which is kind of the playmaker in games, so you won't be watching Netflix on the second monitor on this character, since you'll be doing all of the plays. An important thing to note is that you're not a Nautilus, Rel, or Alistar. You never want to be the frontline in fights, because Thresh is very squishy as a character and has no way to get himself out of danger, only his allies. So to put it in a simple way, there are frontline champs, backline champs, and then there's Thresh, which is a sideline champ. If you get your team with you, invading can be very good to burn summoner spells and tip the game a little bit in your favor early on. But this can sometimes be risky in solo queue where you have little coordination, so just keep that in mind. In the early game, Thresh is one of the strongest fighting champions in bot lane. Now you might think you'd start Hook because it's your strongest ability, but I usually go E. If you don't invade, of course. This is because the damage on your auto attacks from the E passive help push the first waves and you get level 2 before your enemies. This is typically something you want to try to do every game, since the level 2 spike in bot is very big. Being a level up on your enemies is of course strong on basically every bot lane, but especially with Thresh. It usually gives a golden opportunity to trade flashes or get a kill if they save it for next game. And if you run Cosmic Insight and Hexflash like me, you'll get your flash before them like I mentioned and have something to close a gap while they don't. After getting a reset, you should look around on the map and see if there's potential to roam mid or for an objective. The goal can either be to burn a flash, get a kill somewhere, or put the game off balance in some way to your team's favor. Thresh really excels at the skirmishes around objectives, where one hook can often win you the fight and make it very one-sided quickly. You'll find that no games feels the same on this champion, since you'll have to lay focus on different parts of your kit every game, depending on what your fights and matchups look like. Maybe the enemy team has a lot of engage, which means you'll have to use your Flay, Lantern, and Hook to peel for carries. The enemy can have a lot of poke, but be very squishy and vulnerable to be picked off. No game is really identical, which keeps the game really Thresh. Sorry. Later in the game, you want to be at every objective, looking to steer fights in your team's favor. This includes looking for picks when you're out of vision, hovering people on side lanes to bail them out with your lantern, and peeling in extended fights until the fight becomes unfair for the enemies. On a final note, I'm currently grinding to become the #1 Thresh in EU West, posting an episode of my journey every Friday, which I think you'll enjoy if you made it this far into the video. Last but not least, if you have any tips or advice for new Thresh players, put them down in the comment section and we'll build up a nice thread of starting help on this champion. Also feel free to ask me anything as well if I missed something in the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you down in the comments.